Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with American Scouser on a Wednesday morning when I'm back to being the number one greatest dad. And number two, and coming in closer and closer, is Gordo. Checking out the mom.
I think he stopped with the ambition of becoming number one. So it's just like, you know what, I'll just be the mom.
Maybe I'll be number one mom. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just here for everyone. Woo!
But for all those who need to know, he is at a work meeting. So let the record show he is not actually here. He is at a work meeting. So
I actually had a big work meeting. It was a safety summit last Wednesday, and I had to take a photo of myself in front of the office to show my wife, like, I am here. I'm not. I wasn't lying this time.
You should make that your background, like the background of the building. You're like, no, it's a meeting. I'm right here.
Right, I'm right here. Good day.
John is with us. And John, that has to be a shirt that your girlfriend bought you, because I can't think of another way around it.
Oh yeah. I actually I bought it for myself, and now I feel bad because he just complimented me in a very sarcastic way. Now I thought it looked rather unique, but apparently not. So maybe,
is that the
Liverpool
from
kit
a couple of years ago?
Yeah, it's the training kit from a couple of years ago. I thought,
I'll be honest, I thought you were wearing some kind of like a psychedelic ringer shirts or something like that. That's what it looked like from here. I don't know.
Yesterday was a psychedelic experience, let me say. So like, it's just on brand. So.
Oh man, yeah, a lot to talk about. Champions League is here, but let's start with this so we can do some bragging, and not to mention some promoting, because if you're not following Patreon, you do not know our story. And actually, we have two shows going up tonight. I think because we had the Drinking Inside the Box being recorded as well while we were recording the other comedy that is the FIFA episode. And this is how we ended up winning Division 1 with the Polish Prince over there. And the comedy is Kazi was with us as well. He was in the VAR booth making like occasional commentary. And the problem is we had 4 games, right, to do 7 points to win the thing. And at the end, I was like, hey, we should, do a test run because, he's going to be rusty. He probably hasn't played in a while. Of course, we didn't do that. And the first game, I had controller issues. The controller doesn't work at all. So we lose the game. And we had 3 games to do 7 points. And I won't spoil it, but it got pretty interesting. So it's a must-see. The spoiler alert is we did actually make it at the end. But how we got there is pretty sweaty. Ryan says we beat a great team after losing to a mediocre team. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, it starts horrific where you're like, holy shit, here we go again, Gordo. But then at the end of the day, I mean, we'll look at the stats and stuff in a bit over here, like a really dominant performance, almost like a shockingly dominant performance.
Well, as we found out by, what was it, Carly Lloyd in the Euros this year, that Pulisic is up and coming. And the
American Maradona, if you will.
I think a lot of people get, especially people that follow the EPL, that don't are not either Chelsea fans and they're not AC Milan fans. Is like you would assume that Christian Pulisic is a phenomenal player because every time there's a game that matters where like more people watch, somehow Christian Pulisic always scores. Like he always pops up with a goal in the big game. So yeah, I was a little nervous, and of course it's on the side where we made both our changes. We only make 2 changes, and it comes straight down that side, and you're just thinking like, oh man, this is not going to go well for us.
And I think I can't remember who was mentioning on the Discord channel, but there is a natural. I mean, I say it's natural because I know it's the same thing happens in Turkey where any performance by an American player is like blown out of proportion. Like you'll read a Turkish newspaper and it will say I don't know, but there's a 3-4 Turkish players in the NBA now. I know, I'm sure you know him, John, by name, but they'll be like, carried the so and so to a win, and you're like, oh damn, really? And then he has like 8 points, and then like James Harden had 35 or something like that. I'm like, but he carried them with the 8 points. So there's like this natural tendency, John, to kind of really blow up what American players do. And honestly, aside from the goal, Pulisic was pretty invisible.
Pretty much an epitome of the entire AC Milan team after that goal,
Yeah.
honestly. And I don't know if it was, and we were talking about it in the post match yesterday. Were we that good or were they that bad? I feel like it's more of us being so good, where they didn't get a touch of the ball. And I feel like there was a certain point there where we had 11 shots and 5 on target, and they had like that singular effort that went in. That's just like, if talk about plans coming together, that's slot ball just on full display, how it can be if it's executed properly. And great response from the boys, right? Like, it's like the effort was there. I was talking about it with Sir Z and Brian. Like, it's like during the weekend we were looking too far ahead to this game, right? So we were like one eye towards the AC Milan game. We forgot what was in front of us last weekend. So I feel like that's definitely the case, especially with their performance yesterday.
See, I don't know if I'm buying that. I mean, not that I didn't like the performance or anything like that, but the thing that gets to me, Gordo, is if you're AC Milan, I mean, seriously, you're asking for it. You're like, did you not watch did their scouts not watch the United game? Did their scouts watch any of our games? Where the only way we're going to give momentum back to these guys is by trying to build from the back and like just walk into their press and stuff like that. So when a team does that, as I was watching it, even when we were 1-0 then, I'm like, oh, it's only a matter of time. I mean, they're going to give the ball away over there and we're going to get chances. We don't have to do anything. The chances are going to come to us. Whereas in the Forest game, it was more like, how are the chances going to come? Why would Milan? I mean, I think we talked about this before. Like, there's certain teams in the Premier League too that will do this, that will insist on doing this, knowing it's a recipe for disaster. Why would they play like that after just seeing how Forest kind of kept us out by playing defensive, playing long ball?
Because I feel like they knew that they're better than Forest, and they're also at home, opening night Champions League. I thought that what I assume that'd be the game plan is they probably watched that game at the weekend. There's head scouts watch the game at the weekend and break it down, that we did not do well when we were behind. Like, we kind of continued the exact same approach to the game, which, like, my dad was over this weekend when we watched the Nottingham Forest game, and he was like, the biggest difference for me after that loss was a Klopp team would have made the end of the Nottingham Forest game exciting, because there was times when Klopp would be like, all right, we're down, let's throw the game plan to the wind and like use your talents and just go all out. And it would be exciting, but like very open. Like, it wouldn't be like total dominance Liverpool, but like the game would be back and forth because we'd just be pressing. Where Arne Slot was very much like, oh no, we're just going to still play the same way, even though we're down 1-0. And it didn't work because we weren't playing well to begin with. So like, we didn't change at all our approach. And I think Milan saw that and was like, all right, we're at home. Let's go hard early. We'll get a goal. And then what happened is they got a goal so early that they're like, let's try and bury this. And they didn't stop. Yeah. Because I really do think if they played typical Italian style, they get the goal and set back, we would have had a much harder time breaking them down. But they got greedy with the timing of that goal, and I think they wanted to go after another one, and then they lost the momentum of the game. And as we all know, and haven't watched this for so long, is the possession really does suck it out of you. I mean, even though you're running the same, when the ball's at your feet, the game's so easy, and you almost don't get tired. When you're chasing shadows and chasing the ball, even though you're running the same amount, it takes a lot out of you, and it sucks the fans out. I know, like, the San Siro was getting, they weren't booing, but they had definitely been sucked out of the game by the 35th, 34th minute.
And that's what Matusha's saying. Like, they just could not play like that at home. I still feel like you play some long balls, man. Let's face it. You throw a long ball behind Trent, who's been, chased down by Rafael Leao, and then you throw it behind Costas, and Pulisic is like pressing on him and stuff like that, that still gives you more of an opportunity and chance than juggling the ball back there in your own box and causing problems. I just don't, and I think that's when like teams think they are better than they actually are, or maybe they're undermining our press and they're like, hey, it worked the first time. I mean, I would argue that even the first time it wasn't necessarily press. It was right after, they got the ball and like came from the goalie and stuff like that. Is it just because so next time we play this Italian team at home, we're gonna face more of a Forest than an AC Milan, then, John, you would think?
I think so, but then there's an expectation that comes, I feel, with being a big club where you can't necessarily, because under Roy Hodgson, I remember one of my first few years as a Liverpool fan, can you believe that, was watching Roy Hodgson's Liverpool, where, there were at times where we played really conservatively at Anfield, which is unheard of. I feel like the same expectation can be, kind of floated around with AC Milan. Granted, is it naive? Yeah, yes, it is naive because you're facing a club that's like superior to you in every way, player for player. But obviously, these players don't think that, and the fact that they went up 1-0 after 3 minutes kind of reinforces like, hey, we can hang with these guys. So in essence, like based on everything you guys said, and I agree totally, that 1-0, 1-0 lead that they got in 3 minutes ended up benefiting us more than they benefited them because it lulled them into a false sense of security. So listen, it worked out well, but to answer your question, Tim, I think they might wise up a little next game if ever we're going to face Italian opposition. We're going like, okay, so we can't play these guys stride for stride. Maybe we gotta like hang back a bit. And
I think you're gonna have some clubs that are, just too cocky or think they're too good to do that.
Right.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know. Maybe I've been watching Fenerbahce and Mourinho too much. At the end of the day, you gotta like play to win the game, as Herm Edwards would say, and like just kind of play smart. Football flashback is back, and you would be proud, football flashback, of my recent record in betting over here. I know I'm jinxing it, but over the last 2 weeks, everything I touch turns into gold, I swear. But Pulisic, I don't know why, but he always plays well against us, he says. And yeah, he does. He does play well. But I mean, honestly, like you were saying, John, I mean, aside from that goal, which is 80-20 Costas and Konate, or maybe 70-30, probably 80-20. I would say, because that ball comes there. Konate should go, but I think Konate kind of overestimates, if you will, McAllister's speed and thinks he's going to catch up. And when he doesn't, he's like, oh, shit, you're not getting anywhere close to this. And then, like, kind of slides over there too late. But
it's the Costas mistake kind of caused our defense to pick and choose. And I remember it was Carragher who was saying Van Dijk had to make a choice. And he chose the wrong one. I don't necessarily agree because he had to make a choice. He was kind of put in no man's land, and our defense was kind of, scrambling back. And granted, the angle was tough, to be fair. Like, I would have expected Alisson to actually save that. I feel like it was just a top-class hit, honestly. It was hit with really hit with so much pace, so much power, where Alisson was like, when he was down, it was in. So I think we just got to give credit to Pulisic for the strike, honestly.
So he says, Football Flashback says, do you think this weekend versus Forest was a blip, considering we were so good in the other 4 games? And I guess I will kind of like convert that question a little bit, Gordo. Did we just put out that lineup for the most part the same way so that, they can kind of make things right? Or is this what we should get used to? Not a lot of rotation.
Well, you're the co-host John has already he did this question in the pre-match, so I kind of already I have my answer, and it's twofolded. I really do think that it was just simply timing with the international break. I think it had more to do with the international break, coming back, being at home against a winnable team, and I just don't think the mindset was there. Like, I don't think that we were kind of looking ahead to the game yesterday versus Milan. I think that was the game to rotate. I think his hands were kind of tied, and he needed to start the best lineup against AC Milan, regardless of the win or loss at Forest, at Anfield against Forest. So I think it was kind of one of those things like, well, I don't have an option because we definitely have to win this game because can't lose 2 on the bounce. can't lose the opening Champions League game because of the game at the weekend. It put more pressure on us to go out and get a win. So I think decisions were kind of made for him in that respect.
So you're saying if we won the weekend game, let's say 2-0 at home, you see a lot more rotation at San Siro?
Yeah, because again, false sense of security, right? Because like I think I even said, like, had we played like the Ipswich game and it wasn't, great, but we end up getting a 1-0, 2-0 win against Forest. I think we go into that game, the game yesterday, way overconfident, and probably get swept away. So I think that there was that loss will end up benefiting us in some way, because it was kind of like, all right, we're back. Let's get our heads together. Let's focus on this game and get a good result. And then it started off terribly. So I was like, oh, maybe everything I said in the pre-match is just swept away already.
I mean, here's the thing, though. I mean, we'll get back to some of the performances in the Milan game, but for the coming weekend, John, you would expect to see more of a Forest-like Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Because those teams are going to come, and Bournemouth is not one of those teams. If Brentford comes, Brentford is still going to try to pass from the back and stuff. There are some teams, Brighton is still going to do it and all that. But, Bournemouth, you would think, would come in and say, what's the recipe? Sounds good. We'll just follow the recipe to a T, kind of a deal. How concerned are you that these guys are going to get tired, especially your boy Gravenberch in the middle, McAllister and Szoboszlai, because they do a lot of running in the system.
Super, super concerned. And, it was kind of like the dampener in the post-match festivities yesterday, where it was another 90 minutes for McAllister. He was subbed out, but he was subbed out on the 90th minute flat. So it's another 90 minutes for him. Gravenberch played the entire game. And listen, I'm the first guy who will be the happiest that Gravenberch is playing every game, but then at the same time, for sustainability purposes, it's not great, because obviously Ryan was playing a lot, but that could cost him quite a few games in the future if he gets injured. Same with McAllister, who is just as or much more important than Gravenberch in terms of being like that dictator of the game. So the problem is, right, and I feel like we're kind of underestimating it. The next batch of guys isn't ideal, and maybe that's what Arnie sees. Like, okay, like, I want to rotate Gravy and McAllister, but Curtis Jones isn't necessarily up to speed. Endo isn't necessarily a fit. We lost Harvey, so like obviously I don't see Harvey playing the double pivot, but then that's still a guy that's still a body that we lost, so that less rotation and stuff like that. We couldn't put Szoboszlai maybe in a double pivot because he's the only one who can play that number 10 position as of now. So I feel like, as concerned as I am, I understand the manager's situation in terms of, because he doesn't know yet, like 100%, who he can trust in this team. So maybe he's using these first few games to find out, like, okay, first 5-6 games, Gravenberch, McAllister, okay, I got it. But at the same time, there's no 100% flawless decision that comes at the cost of, risking these guys for injury in the future. So it's a double-edged sword. I'm kind of neutral towards it,
Do you think, though, that out of everyone on the team, Gravenberch has played the least amount over the last 12 months. So he might be the fittest. He might be one of the only ones in that starting lineup that Slot's been favoring that might have the legs to go into December playing every game.
Yeah, but this is not like, I know what you're saying, and you're probably right in terms of, total number of minutes. He didn't play a lot, didn't play the summer and stuff like that. But yeah, let me put this up there for John's sake, so he can drool a little bit. But at the same time, I mean, this is not like, I mean, you can't like sleep 12 hours tonight and then just sleep 2 hours rest of the weekend. Be like, I slept 12 hours the other day. I'm all stocked up. Eventually, it's going to kind of like catch up with you. And I think as much running as he does, and Szoboszlai, as much running as he does, I mean, I know he was getting. And like, I don't understand it. I think if Harvey is there, he's probably coming in at the 60 and stuff. Yeah. But how bad is Jones, or what kind of a shape is Jones in then? That even I was saying yesterday, like, you're telling me like he can't just come in and, like give us 20, 30 minutes in that spot and get Szoboszlai some rest? Because that's what I mainly worry about, is down the road. It's going to get worse. At the start of the season, everyone was doubting Slot and the owners Now you keep posting appreciation posts like you had faith in him. Actually, we had faith in him. I mean, not all of us, maybe, but
I think it might be general. I'm hoping that's like a general statement because I
oh,
really
like
do
he's
feel
not
like,
referring to us. He's
yeah,
I was
not
gonna
us
say, if you've been
specifically.
watching us,
I was like, yeah. You obviously weren't watching these because I think the three of us definitely had faith in him and FSG for that matter.
There's always a chance for that injury record to be worked past. He's so young. There's any possibility we saw fit gravy, or we see it probably a fit gravy all year. And actually, in favor, I mean, we were talking about this yesterday. Has Gravenberg been our most consistent player this year? And probably the first one to be penciled in right now, John.
Yes.
Yeah, because he was good
How
against.
about you?
He wasn't. He was out of everyone. Everyone had a stinker, but I would say that he probably had the best game out of anyone at Forest.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
I mean that he's been, I guess, defined in this thing. And somebody like Ryan was saying, like, do we need a CDM? So let me ask you guys this. And I know he's the manager. He's not the one technically signing players and all that kind of stuff. Is it that he said, no, this is the kind of CDM I want? It's Zuby or nothing, unless it's the same kind of guy, and then we'll roll with this. Because Slot said even himself that he will have to kind of adjust to this new Premier League thing in terms of like rotation, all that. Do you think if he rethinks it now, and really, knock on wood, we don't really have a lot of injuries. The Harvey one was a blow, more for Harvey than anything else, really, because I think he would have gotten a lot of opportunities. But you think, Gordo, that Slot kind of thought, oh, we'll do this, and now he's like, oh, god damn, every 3 days?
Yeah, that's the difference. I think it was John. It was you in the pre-match yesterday that was like, oh, just the difference in the leagues. It's a lot. It's kind of a wake-up call to see the difference in the intensity throughout the games. I mean, yeah, Force is probably going to finish upper mid-table, but it's still, an upper mid-table team in, some of the other leagues in Europe is easy opposition. So I think that he's definitely going to have to get used to that. And every team is going to give you a game, whether or not they're going to be good. They're definitely going to run you into the ground for 90 minutes. So I think that everybody's it's something that he's going to have to adjust to, and might be looking at January, come November, being like, I think we need more midfielders, please.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, because, God forbids when we go into these stages and you got another, 2 international breaks coming, I think, before we enter the January transfer window and stuff like that. So God knows.
Yeah, and I mentioned in the post-match, I was talking with Serzi and Brian as well, like, there is a legitimate chance we can be going into that packed November schedule, fielding out Jones and Endo in that double pivot, right? Because we maybe, God forbid, a knock for McAllister, a knock for Gravenberg, and that's not ideal. Both are good players, right? Endo and Jones. Jones hasn't necessarily looked up to speed, and Endo is not a good fit. So I feel like for safety, right, for the pragmatic sake, I feel like regardless of how good Gravenberg or McAllister is playing, we still got to get someone in.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Cody False 9 says, I don't want to be that guy, but since a long time, we'll always hardly struggle to score against teams like AC Milan, Villa, West Ham. Because I think, yes, they play a lot more open, and the issue is always against teams that sit back and like do the low block, and we have to like open them up and stuff like that. But let me ask you this, Gordo. I've said this, and I'm still getting freaking flack for it, even though I said it 2 months ago, that I don't think Endo is a technical, like a fit. It's not a matter of, he's not ready yet or anything like that. I don't think he's a fit. I think he can do a job, but not the way that we would want in maybe like a Champions League game and stuff like that. Maybe against, West Ham in the League Cup, you throw him out there, you get everybody rest. But Jones, do you think Jones gets in this team in that low block? I mean, in the double pivot, or do you think he gets minutes for Szoboszlai? I mean, you would think, even if you don't see him this weekend, we will see him in the League Cup, in the FL Cup against West Ham. When he trots out there, you think he goes for Szoboszlai or he goes for somebody in the double fit?
That's a good call. I mean, from what Slot's seen under his reign, I know he's got tapes and stuff and he can watch everything else, but in preseason, we've kind of seen the old Jones, that there's a large faction of the fan base that don't like that kind of the Wild West gunslinger. I can do this on my own. So that would be Soboslai, because it doesn't hurt you as bad if you have a bad game. Also, he wants that position. He said it publicly. He wants that position to have more goals and more assists. You get somebody that's a little more adventurous, then I would probably put him up there. However, the Jones we saw last year, where he started turning doubters into believers, and the guy that I personally liked and saw was finally coming to fruition, that's somebody in the pivot. So it really just depends on what Slot's seeing in training. I really hope that we get the Jones of last year, because I think he was starting to turn a lot of people on the fence about him.
And more depth for those two pivot spots as well.
Yeah, but that's kind of like depends on Jones too, right? Because it's, which Jones we're going to see out there. Because, yeah, I agree. Last year, he was like the more dependable one. He was kind of more like Genie-like, like not going to give the ball away, win the balls, rotate, move the ball, and stuff like that. But like this preseason, and I know it was preseason, but in the double pivots, he was a little bit too adventurous for somebody playing in that role. And while we need someone who can turn with the ball when needed in that spot, you can't just take the risk either, because the moments you do, you kind of leaving everybody out to dry, especially like your center backs and stuff like that. So gonna go against West Ham with Morton, Endo, and Chiesa in midfield at this point, says Matush. So let me ask you guys this. I mean, I really thought, going back to what you were saying, John, like Chiesa couldn't have come in. And I know I don't want to be like that guy that says like, put the new shiny toy and let's see him play or something like that. But I thought he would get more minutes, and if nothing else, to get more rest. Not to get Chiesa minutes, but get other people rest. Gakpo is a conversation we have to have, because he was really, really good yesterday. What do you do with Gakpo?
What do I do with Gakpo? It's tough, because as good as Diaz starts, as good as Diaz's start was, Gakpo, I don't want to phrase it this way, but I'll do it anyway. Gakpo is the more intelligent option, I feel, in terms of having a guy there who can read the game better. Isn't necessarily as gung ho as a Luis Diaz. Granted, again, Diaz has started the season well, which makes the conversation interesting. But I believe in this show in particular, we had Gakpo as the starting left wing in Slot's best lineup, with Diaz kind of coming in and throwing a wrench into that plan. But it's a problem for Slot, but it's a great problem for him to have, right? And I feel like it's right now I'm seeing it as a horses for courses kind of deal. It's really opposition dependent. I'm skewed a bit towards Gakpo, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. But I loved his connection with Tsimikas. It was way better than a Luis Diaz to Robertson situation that has been in the works for more than 3 years now, and for some reason couldn't couldn't come over. And when Robertson and Gakpo play, they have a great connection too. And I feel like that really speaks to his intelligence. Again, it's
to be able to communicate with Costas. You mean have to be above and beyond to be able to communicate with Costas?
Yeah, pretty much. The space he was getting last night was because he was understanding the overlap that Costas was getting. He was waiting for Costas in a lot of moments where he would just do this dribble that would delay for a little bit, because he knows that the runner is going to come and overlap and give him some space. With Diaz, once he gets the ball, overlap or not, he's taking on his guy. And that's necessary. That's worked well, right? First 3 games, not so much last game. So it's a good conversation. It's a good problem for Arnie to have, like I said.
This is a good analogy right here. Coming from the Prince, I'm assuming he's telling the butler and somebody's typing this in. But Lucha can make nothing. He's not going to type in. He's just sipping the coffee. They're tell him, Jeeves. Lucha can make nothing out of something. Gakpo makes sure he doesn't put himself in that nothing position. And I think that's a good way to explain that for anybody who doesn't watch the game, because Diaz does go. And then suddenly, my favorite is when he starts dribbling sideways on the pitch and suddenly ends up on the other sideline because he got past everybody along the way that came out. But we're back to square one, and now there's nobody on the left. Everybody's on the right-hand side. But I will ask you guys this. I don't know if you guys caught this, Gordo. They were talking to Trent. The CBS guys were talking to Trent after the game. And one thing he talked about, because Jamie was asking him about the role of the fullbacks in slot system. And Trent's pretty much said that it changes every game based on what the other team is doing, based on how they're pressing, or, based on the instructions given. So do you think we're sitting over here analyzing things, not really knowing what the actual direction is? We're like, oh, see, he can overlap, maybe because he was told to overlap and the other guy was not. Because based on how Trent said it, it sounded like it's not the old way of club where we do this, whether you like it or not. We don't care what the fuck you do. We're doing this. Whereas it sounded a bit more like, now we do this based on what you're doing. We can change it on a dime and put you in a tough spot.
Yeah, it was refreshing to hear that, because it's like, oh, we're approaching every game differently. Because especially like take the fullbacks. I know the question was about the fullbacks, but like with Gakpo and Diaz, right? We have two screwdrivers. We got a Phillips and a flathead screwdriver. They both do the same thing. They both screw screws, which is great for what we want them to do. We've got Gakpo, who can play in a game like that phenomenally, where like there's space between the lines. He can make the passes, he can make the runs, he can find space and shoot. How many times did he try and do that where he's running across the 18-yard box trying to curl it inside? That's what we want to see all the time. However, somebody like him who's more meticulous, who doesn't like to take the chances, and beats people when he knows he's, like Matoush said, he's got like 100% possibility of beating the guy. I mean, because his dribble rate's insane. He's not going to break down a low block. Whereas that's Diaz. That's the wild, like, let's just go, let's do this. I'm going to take him on and try and create the space myself. So I think we've got two really versatile players in different situations. We got Gakpo that we can utilize in a game that's going to be more open, and then we've got Diaz who can kind of give us the chocolate twist cone and throw something crazy in the mix and get a space that wasn't essentially there. Whereas like Gakpo's vanilla, and I mean, I love a good vanilla cone, but like it's not going to work against a low block.
So against the low block, you're still going with Diaz?
Yes, yeah, just for that what if factor. Also, like creating space on his own, because how many times have we seen Diaz, like Matoush says, makes something out of nothing? There's nothing there. He dribbles three players. It looks like he gets himself in a cul-de-sac, and then it goes through a player's leg. He runs around the corner flag, and he's got the ball at his feet on the touchline. Like, it's just, that's the kind of stuff we need against a low block.
Yeah, that shot against Forest last weekend where we thought it was a lost cause, and he just somehow ended up, any other day that's a goal. So, yeah, it's a great point.
I mean, one thing I really liked hearing about what Tran was saying is because it sounded like it's still a process, which made me think things are going to get better as we go. Because he almost made it sound like we didn't get to the chapter yet where they do this, and we're going to adjust. And not to mention, I think that's kind of like as you do it more and more on the pitch. I mean, these guys are all like, intelligent players that have been around for a long time, and they're all like in the international teams and stuff like that. They are going to be able to see and automatically adjust their play on the fly, and everybody is going to be able to. So that was very good to hear. But coming back to you, since you said Costas, what did you think about Costas's play? Because
they cut out
him in a nutshell, I would say. It's best and worst of Costas. The best parts being set piece delivery, offensive minded. And I loved his overlaps as well with Gakpo. I feel like they have a good chemistry there. Granted, it's one incident, right? But that one incident led to a goal, and at the highest level, that could prove costly. So that's the reason why he's the backup, right? But then at the same time, it wasn't necessarily his worst game in the world because, like, again, he delivered pretty good from the set pieces. Assisted Van Dijk. It was Trent who assisted Konate, right? Yeah. So, but still, it was still pretty threatening from the corners. I always stand by that he's a way better, crosser of the ball than Robertson ever was on set piece, on a dead ball situation, or moving. So, yeah, it's pretty much what we expect from our backup left back, right? Sometimes unconvincing, sometimes can get the job done, but overall, surprised that he was playing, honestly. Like, this seemed like more of a Robertson.
Looked like he was as well, yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I don't know who gave him that fluorescent green light to keep shooting, by the way.
I was just going to say, someone either needs to undo his ponytail a little bit. It might be too tight because I think after the second one that you put into Rosette, you gotta stop shooting. Like that's
Like,
it for the day.
he put it too tight, thinking he was Darwin Nunez, just cranking up shot after shot. I'm like, bro.
To be fair, one of them where he even got upset, and I don't blame him. He put a shot in on the grounds, and that's a great move, I think, for a fullback, because you're
Right.
either hitting the targets or somebody should be smashing that goal in the back post and sliding in and scoring that. And nobody did. I think it was Nunez and Mo at the time, and they both kind of like watched the shots as opposed to kind of like keep making the run. And I think that's kind of like, because that's not what Robertson does. Robertson is probably crossing that ball in over there. He's not taking the shot. So they're waiting for that ball to be curled in. They don't want to be offside, whereas Costas just cranks the shot. I think it's a smart move. The ball goes to a perfect place. We were watching the highlights last night too, and even the wifey used to be a left back, so she appreciates. She's not a huge Costas fan though, so there's that. But neither am I, so there's that as well. So that's why we get along so good. So
why
we can just sit around the dinner table and hate on Costas all night.
you got a dartboard with his face on it.
If we somehow win the league or a Champions League this year, I'm getting Tim a Simicast jersey. I don't care. I know that costs.
I mean, I'll wear it. It's not like
Right.
like, okay, definitely not a hate thing, but I just don't. I think the thing that I know it does to Angel, and it did to me as well, is when Robertson was out for like a month or so, he came in, he played 2 great games, and everybody just made him 5 times better than Robertson suddenly. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, Robertson was great for the last 2 years. And then he went back to his regular self, and everybody was like, of course, everybody like jumped off the ship. You should have never jumped on in the first place. And I think that gets to me more than anything else. But yeah, I mean, he did well overall. But yeah, like you say, if a smarter Milan could have cashed in on that early mistake, I mean, they cashed in by scoring the goal, but then they could have cashed in that situation and played it a bit smarter, I think, once they were up and they just kind of like played into our hands.
Let me actually ask Tim before we move on. I came up with a question, and I asked Brian and Serzi this. Let's say I'm from the future, right? June. Let's say I came from June.
Is that why you wore that shirt, so you can ask this question?
Right. Maybe
I'm from the future.
Right. Like, I'm from the future, right? And let's say I come in here and tell you guys, right, that we won the Champions League this year, right? Let's say I came from July 1, 2025. I say we won the Champions League. How surprised would you be? And I'll start with you, Tim. Then Gordon could give his opinion. Like, how
surprised would I be?
Yeah. Like, what's your surprise level, considering everything, new manager, new tactics, all that?
I don't know, pleasantly surprised. I understand the new manager thing, but I think we make a bit too much of the new manager thing, because usually new manager means a lot of new players, like bringing his guys, blah, 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 and stuff. I don't think we had that. So the new manager thing is not as big of a detriment, I think. And in some ways, I think it has been a plus. Going back to that interview again with Trent, he mentioned something about before he came back, like they were on the phone to each other, and people were like, dude, actually, this is pretty good. You'll be surprised, kind of a thing. Because he like slipped and said something like that and said, like he would come back and like he was like, oh yeah, really looking forward to it now. Because it was like, how is this new guy, by the way? He was like, it's great, dude. Come on in. The water is great. So I think the new manager thing is not, I think it's almost been like a positive in that sense for those guys who've been around for a while. I mean, I will be pleasantly surprised just because I feel like there's still some improvements needed in the squad for me to be like more confident, but I wouldn't be like, holy shit, there's no way either.
Gordo?
Yeah, because it is like this is the Klopp team that he built to like go for a challenge this year. Like if Klopp was here, we'd be expecting this team to build on what they did last year. They did overachieve, I think, for the project, which is partially why I think Klopp decided to leave when he did. The club was in a lot better position, but this would have been the team, this was going to be the year they pushed on. So the only difference is who's at the helm, and we didn't fortify any positions really that we needed fortifying. So I wouldn't be super surprised. However, I don't think and we all said this at the beginning, even before a ball was kicked. I think really just top 4 is what we expect. If we can get a trophy, top 4 in a trophy in Arne's first season, phenomenal. I mean, we'll take that. But his job is top 4, so that's all I'm expecting this year. That's why I wasn't too bothered by the Forest, because I think we're gonna have a lot of those games this year where it's like, we've been playing so well. Why did we drop the ball? We had a stinker. I'd rather win the game. Like, the most frustrating thing sometimes with games that we've lost in the past, and we haven't lost that many under Klopp, but it's been like we've dominated the game. Like, we had all these chances and we didn't score any. Like, the keeper ended up having the game of his life. How many times do we say that? I'd rather just win those games and then lose the stinkers and be like, we just didn't play well. Let's take that. And if that's what happens 4 or 5 times this year and we finish in third, 10 points off the top, that's fine with me.
That's a good point, though. Do you guys think? I don't even know what my expectations were for this year, really. I mean, I did the homer pick when we did the preseason picks, but I don't even know because of maybe last year, because that was the expectation I had last year, top 4 and hopefully like a trophy kind of a thing. But because what we did last year, I was like, you never know going into this year. Have the first 3 weeks when we had that winning streak and stuff kind of changed everybody. So when the Forest thing happened, everybody was like, we were a title contender last week. What the hell happened, kind of a deal.
In honor of this show, I'm going to stay mellow and say, even after those first 3 days, my expectation was still top 4. For me, the ceiling is top 4 and trophy. I would be absolutely over the moon with that. But if we just get top 4, I'd be solid. So top 4 was my expectation.
Top 4 and a League Cup, and you guys are all good.
Yeah, absolutely. Klopp took 4 years to win his first trophy.
Yeah.
The Slot gets it in his first year. I don't care if it's the League Cup, it's a trophy.
Yeah, right? With no backup players that brought in. He's definitely going to go half the season without formidable.
Okay, so let me flip the question then. What would it take for you guys to change that and say, you know what? There should be a title year, or there should be a Champions League trophy. I feel like the Champions League trophy, based on like what Sir D was saying, it feels like it's a bit more possible, just because you have Anfield, right? So like we've had some teams over the years where not good enough for sure to win the league or consistent enough, but can put in a performance and can beat anybody on any given day, kind of a thing, especially when home. So I feel like that's a bit more like less shocking, if you will, than having like a consistent run. But what would it take for you guys to say, you know what, I am changing my expectations?
This is dangerous ground. Gordo, you go first. This is dangerous. This is a slippery slope. I don't want to be first.
So here we are, 4 games in, 4 league games, 1 Champions League game, and we're all very level-headed. Now, put us in March in a position where we were last year, and I'll be like, yes, we're going to go for the quad again. Yeah, let's do it. So, like, it really just is, I think, like, who doesn't want to dream? I mean, even last year, with the beginning of last year, we're like, I don't think we're going to go. We changed too many players in the midfield. We've got basically a new cast, and I don't think it's going to be a great year. And then come March, I think we were all like, yes, it's very possible. We can win the quad. Yeah. So I think it just takes results. And if we're in the same position in March that we were last year, I think.
So your deadline is March. So if we're January, we're like seconds or like only a point behind or tied in points and stuff.
Tottenham are going to win the league every year, January 1st.
Tottenham's not even winning the league in freaking September.
No, but like, how many times do they like they go like undefeated for the first 10 games?
But it wouldn't make you change your expectations though. Like, it's one thing to get all giddy, but in terms of like, we should be able to challenge for it. Not necessarily, you don't have to win it, but like I say, beginning of last year, I probably had the same expectation. Top 4 and a trophy would be good. Brand new midfield and stuff like that. It's going to take time. I feel like this year, maybe because of last year, I'm like, hey, why the hell not? If they could have done it last year with all those injuries and a bunch of kids, maybe this year, if we're a bit lucky with injuries, why the hell not?
Yeah, for me, it's I'm still going to go with last year, because last year, again, for me, it was like my goal last year was top 4 in a trophy, and that was fulfilled. But my expectation changed come March. So that which is what it was a big gut punch.
You guys are March, like freaking cast on the roof.
I'd say when was the Forest win? The 1-0 over Forest. That's when my expectation changed.
When Nunez scored a goal, you're
Yeah.
like, we can go all the way.
Yeah. When Nunez
Holy
scores,
shit,
like,
he can score! No, I'm
right.
just-
When,
no, I'm just
when
kidding.
Nunez can score that way, like in a game where it looked like nothing was absolutely going for us, and we somehow managed to get it out, like in classic Klopp fashion, I was like, yeah, maybe this is our year. Klopp leaving, it's just one for the storybooks. Obviously, it didn't end up that way, but I would say that's when my expectation changed. So probably something similar for me to start believing again. Granted, it might be a bit later because I'm still stinging from last year. So there's still that trauma, right? Like, even if it comes, I'm gonna be like, hold on. This is what I felt last year. Maybe I should mellow down a bit.
Yeah, I could like go reverse, like in the start a bit more optimistic and lower the expectations right there.
Right.
Even if we win the league, it's still bittersweet because Salah and Van Dijk. Yes, you are being a Grinch, Jesus Christ. But hey, Mane is coming back, so there's that. Would you guys take a Champions League final and top four if I over? No, I'm not teased by final. That's even worse. If you're gonna lose the final, I'd rather not make the final.
Who are we facing? Because if it's not anyone but Real Madrid, I'll take that all day long.
Okay,
No,
when somebody tells me I'm giving you a final, but not the trophy, I take that as we're going to the final, losing to whoever it is.
Oh, okay. Well, I took it as
no, because
I took it as we'll get a fair shake. Like, we'll see how it plays out.
That's the offer. Yeah, I thought that when somebody tells me Champions League final and a top four, oh, come on, man. That's like, what the fuck? But I take that as we're losing the final.
Yeah,
not to City.
You tell me you don't want a shot at the final and top four. Like I said, I'd be fine with top four and nothing else. And now you're gonna give me a Champions League final too. I'd snatch that. I mean, I don't even think that's a question. Also,
but you're losing. Final,
but look at it this way, right? Like, say we don't. Say, Sir Z is looking into his Nostradamus ball, and he's predicting that we lose not only Verge, but we also lose Salah. We don't offer him contracts. Then you've got Arne Slot going into his second summer. First time he goes out into the Premier League, gets a team that went half the year without any backups and new players to get fourth place and go to the Champions League final. You're talking about, like, we are a destination for players. That's like going to the final in your first year as a Premier League manager. That's a big flag for players that are looking to leave and start on a project, especially if somebody like Verge and Salah leave, because now you've got positions that, like, when you're negotiating with teams that already have set superstars that are like, hey, Mo Salah is going to start if he's healthy, Verge is going to start if he's healthy. Sometimes that puts players off, like especially young players that want minutes. You lose those guys, you go to the final, you put a big sticker that says, available. And I don't know. I think it's just good for the club. I'd take that.
I understand the forward thinkingness, good, and I think it's actually right. But I don't know if I want my summer to be ruined. That's all. That's
what, I don't always agree with Kelly, but when I do, I mean, if it's a final and if it's a guaranteed loss, I'd rather not be in the final. I'd rather go out earlier.
That is gonna sting, man. I can already imagine it right now. just
if the outcome, see, like if it's not, you're making the final and it's a 50-50. Oh, hell yeah. I think any of us would take that. Because, like I say, in a 50-50, it is 50-50. So I would definitely take that. Andy Carroll is at Bordeaux, really? I mean, how old is he?
I'm surprised he's still playing.
It's more shocking that Bordeaux is fourth tier.
Yeah, right. I mean,
right.
Is it a different Bordeaux? Is it not? Like,
no, this is the Bordeaux that we were about to buy, and when we didn't buy, they went all the way down. I don't know if they're in the fourth tier. I thought they only dropped like one or something like that. But I mean, So Z says I'm still hurting from losing to Madrid in the final. Yeah, I would not want that, because I think those accumulate too. You don't want to be the team that keeps losing finals and stuff. I know, like, Klopp had to live that for a while, because you don't want to be that team. Because that kind of, like, breeds more final losses, I feel like. But
it's like what I always say when, like, Mo has a bad game or something. It's like, how many players would kill to have a bad Mo Salah game? Like, how many teams would kill to, like, just go to as many finals as we've been to? Sometimes I feel like we're so focused. Like, we always talk. When you talk in the bars with friends with other teams, you're always like, it's not about the trophy count. But then somehow when you talk about losing finals, you're like, I'd rather win the trophy. It's like, what? You can't have both. right?
thing
I'd
is,
rather.
we've also won quite a bit of finals as well. Like obviously that Champions League is the big highlight, but we've won the League Cup final twice. We've won the FA Cup final. We've won the Super Cup, the Club World Cup final. So we do have a decent record in finals. The only problem is like those losses, those 2 losses came from the Champions League final, which is magnified like tenfold. But if you're looking at the record in isolation, it's quite good, right? You take that record all day long. Yeah.
I'm just saying that, I would rather go out a lot earlier than lose in the final.
I can see that.
Especially it's less painful. Like if you go out in the quarters, it's a lot less painful than losing the final. I think because like there's so much build up, like 2-3 weeks of nothing but talking about the final and shit like that. And when it's the stinker, yeah, it does like definitely spoil the summer for sure. But oh man, the comments kill me sometimes. So Cersei's age is coming out because he's still having flashbacks from like the 89.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
that one was particularly bad.
Like Yali says, I mean, we had like the Europa, the Champions League, and stuff like that. So, but then when you kind of start converting into wins, yeah, you do forget like the initial like past months. They become growing pains. But and Side is here. Yes, we do need another 6. But
I can't believe
still on the Verla boats. Let me ask you guys this before we go though. For up top, are you guys shocked first of all that Nunez did not get a start? And the second question is, when does Nunez get a start?
I am shocked. I am shocked. I'd say Bournemouth because I don't know, man. Like, and I think you mentioned this, Tim. Like, you can't look at Jota's injury record, right, and say like starting him for what would be Bournemouth, the 5th game in a row now, right? And play him for like a full 80, right? Is competent, right? Is good practice. It's not. So I would say, for the sake of my sanity, we're seeing Darwin Nunez against Bournemouth. Is that going to be good for us? I don't know.
Yeah, against a low block, I really don't know. He played 68 minutes yesterday, Gordo, and then Nunez came in, and I don't know, it was like an average performance. It was nothing special. A couple of Nunez moments, couple of good moments. I mean, nothing. If it wasn't Nunez, I don't think you would even like talk about it a lot in terms of like evaluating the performance kind of thing. I think he has a bigger magnifying glass on him, fair or not. But when do you think we see him starting?
It's two-edged sword because we keep talking about for everyone else that you earn. It looks like Slot's the manager that you're gonna have to earn your starting position, and so far, even though we've seen glimpses, I don't think he's looking at Nunez as starting 11. However, personally, I agree with both of you guys. I think you have to give him a start at some point because he's got to get at least 90 minutes to show, to give himself a chance to show that he belongs in the team. And I think that's only fair. And also with Jota's record, he needs to sit with his injuries. We can't have him playing. He's not going to last 90 minutes. We know that for playing every game. So I think, and again, low block, this is the opportunity to bring somebody in that brings a little bit of chaos that can kind of spread some lines and open some gaps in. Whether or not, and that's the one thing that a lot of people that love Nunez talk about is, his off the ball work is sometimes enough, and that's the chaos that he causes. It's sometimes enough to open up space for Salah to slide in or Diaz to slide in and create those opportunities. So I think that this would be the best chance early on this year for us to see him with the start.
What is going on in the
chat? By the way, what is going on over
here? Just like I'm laughing.
How to use YouTube? I mean, the guy is not 104 over here.
I was like, what is going on in the chat?
He's got the rock and the stone. He's like, where do I pound it to get to the other next video? I guess, am I really older than? I think I'm fucking older than everybody. So it is what it is. And so he says, okay, the conversation is getting out of control over there, but.
Hey, I still read. I read a lot of graphic novels / comic books. So.
Never been a comic guy, and I don't know why, but never even there. But yeah, Cersei is really impressing the audience. so young at heart and stuff like that. But
I'm surprised.
I don't know. With Nunez, man. With
He was
Nunez,
born-
I don't know. I feel like Slot looked at these fixtures. I think we lined ourselves up where this was a Tuesday game. So to Saturday, you can still keep your core and go out there. Then you have West Ham, where you might be able to do almost like a 70-80% rotation, gives you one more game to be able to go solid, and then you do some rotation moving on from that. Because I think this kind of lets you do that. Like, do you guys expect, like, who would be rested against Bournemouth out of this lineup? It's not going to
Uh,
be Mo. Probably
no,
should
it's not
be.
going to be Mo. I think I am confident that it's going to be Jota. Because
By the
like
way, I have to stop this to tell you to go fuck yourself. But go ahead. Okay.
yeah, I saw that. I was like, no. Anyway, yeah, I would say that it's Jota. First of all, like obviously the injury record, and as Gally kind of touched on earlier, he hasn't exactly lit the world on fire. So he has some goodwill, but he doesn't have enough goodwill that if he's not performing for a couple of games, that we just have to keep him in there. So I think we need to give Nunez a fair shake in. Great shot from Gally there. Sobo or McAllister can see it. For me, it's McAllister because, Soboslai has been running his legs off of the pitch, but then McAllister has played 90 minutes even throughout the summer as well. So I'd like to see Jones come in maybe for a McAllister. Robertson comes back for sure. So that's going to be, for me, those are going to be the changes. Robertson. There's the whole Gakpo and Diaz thing, though, too.
I think we kind of did that as Diaz, right? It's like he came in the last 20. I mean, I almost honestly, I think maybe Konate, which we were going back and forth on this one, the Konate and Kwanzaa. I honestly think we otherwise come out with the same 11 that we started the first 4 games with. How about you, Gordo? Right? Well, yeah. I mean, because Jota came out. I really do think Diaz will get back his spot. I think he is the starter, if you will. Mo's not going anywhere, so Mo is going to start. And I think he keeps this midfield intact. Maybe he rotates earlier, but he will keep it intact. By the way, I forgot to mention this. I did talk about it last night as well. But if you are going to be at the Fan Fest in Chicago, there'll be a mini petting zoo. I know Gordo will be there, right?
It's not going to be me. I'm not part of the petting zoo. If that's what you're suggesting. I know I am. I'm loose, but I'm not that loose. I'm not going to.
Yeah, but I will definitely be there. There'll be no petting. There will be no petting, but I will be there. So if you're gonna make it to the Fan Fest, shoot us a message. Hopefully, we'll get to meet. Can hook you up with some coasters and stuff like that for American Scouser. So send us a message if you're going to be in Chicago at the Fan Fest on Saturday, because that's the only day I'm attending, because I'm avoiding Sunday like the plague, and I don't want to hang out with a bunch of City and Arsenal fans. That will be quite miserable, I think. But
I'll wear this hat. So I'll wear the hat. So if you see
there you go. So if you see the hats, you can go start petting him.
Tim, please send me the link of that hat, please.
Oh, that's why I wore it this morning. I was trying to pick a hat. I'm like, I'll pick this just to piss him off more. So that's
come on, man. Don't hold out on me. I got the money ready.
By the way, I don't even know what this means. Okay, so like, Costas gets dropped, I think. Am I a YouTuber or a media host commentator? John, translate. You're the young one.
I'm young, but not that young. I thought both were like the same thing. Honestly, like
maybe like we don't go around doing like pranks, like throwing rice on people and shit.
True. Yeah.
Like the YouTuber, or
you don't want to get shot, right?
You gotta subscribe.
In Chicago, especially.
You gotta subscribe to our Patreon to see those videos. Tamusha going around throwing paint on the Mona Lisa.
Yeah, the dark side of my YouTube life is on Patreon only. But okay, I mean, I'm sure. Well, I don't know about Gordo, but I don't know. Like John, you probably will be in the pre-match or post-match this weekend, probably. I assume. But let's get an early prediction on our way out. I'll hold my for Friday. But what do you guys expect to see in terms of a result out of the Bournemouth game?
Gordo, you go first.
All right. It's
all day he's been like,
because I want to think, man.
It's a must win, right? This is like part of what we talked about on Drink Inside the Box last night was like Kelly had said, like, of course it's Bournemouth at home. Like, to be right off the heels. Like, whoever is doing these schedules, like, it's just cruel, right? Because like, but I thought like this is the biggest opportunity to put the Nottingham Forest game to bed. This is a perfect opportunity. We got a easily winnable game at home again. Let's smash the crap out of them, and then it's like, oh, that was just a little blip. This is the real team. I'm saying 4-0.
People see, I did this last time. I'm not even gonna go anywhere near these scores and all that kind of stuff because I did it last time, and we'll see where we ended up. But John, what do you got?
The special.
This my special or slot special? My special.
Oh, your special.
My special. Okay. Yeah. Alan says 3-0. Yeah, the more confident you guys are, the less confident I become. But they better win because I don't want to sit next to a bunch of fans and have that experience. Because it would be one thing. This is 9-2.
We did beat Bournemouth 9-0 a few years ago.
Yeah, we did, right? Yeah, what the hell was that game last night? I did take the
Bournemouth scores twice first. It's 2-0 Bournemouth inside 10 minutes.
Bayern and a Kane goal and over 2.5 on that one. I don't know if there was an option for over 10 goals and what the returns was on that bet, but yeah, that is just like crazy. He says 5-3. I don't know why, but it's a gut feeling. I mean, I'll take any win really to get that on there. Favorite Liverpool content creators out there, aside from ourselves?
Ourselves. I would say ourselves. Love your own, man.
There's a lot of them, and that's one thing. I think there's definitely a lot of like Liverpool content out there, but
I like the dude who does impressions. Farley, I think is his name. He nails the Sean Dyche and the Rafa Benitez.
Andy?
No, I forget. Andy, I think I forget his name. His last name's Farley, Farley. I see him on Twitter. He does impressions of managers. It's pretty funny. Yeah.
Okay, Serzi's not that old, which is Shankly was before my time. Jeez. Poor Serzi is really doing like a Darren Farley.
Yeah, there we go.
The guy I'm thinking of is Andy. Is it Cantwell? Is the last name? Did I just make that up?
Yeah. I feel like I've heard that name, but I forget which outlet he's associated to.
Leo, I always miss Leo's stuff because I only see like the clips on Instagram, to be honest with you. We've had Leo on actually for like an episode on the podcast for an interview once too. I do always like miss his content somehow. I don't know why. I always like I catch it on Instagram and it's like it's just over and stuff like that. But James Redmond.
Is he the dude who said Sadio Mane is the best in the world?
That's Serzi, yeah.
Oh man.
But yes, so go scour around. Go around and spread the word on American Scouser being the best content. Give us a like, a share, drag a friend by the ear. What are we at now? We're moving on up in the world, people.
We're like a 9-10, I believe.
9-12. That was
9-12.
Yesterday, buddy. We're at 9-12 right now. So the goal is 1,000, obviously. So do give the like, give the share, drag a friend by the ear, help us get to the thousands. And that's like the main goal. I was thinking by the end of the year, but we might be able to raise the bar and get there even before. It'll be a Christmas gift for all of us here at American Scouser. And do check out the Patreon as well. A lot of free content going up there right now. Like I said, Drinking Inside the Box, new episode is going to come out like probably today or tomorrow, I would think. And then you'll be able to watch the our smashing around co-op FC 24. By the way, I thought FC 25 was coming out today. Apparently, it's like Thursday, I think.
It's usually around my birthday.
On that one, but hey, are you going to be in the FC 25 realm, John, or are you going to be hiding?
Well, I don't want to be part of the Timuchin's list of kids that he just destroyed on FIFA. So, no, I'm kidding. I probably might get it.
Gally was telling me, I guess there's like a FIFA screen set up on the Fan Fest, Gordo, so we can just go over there and just like make a couple of kids cry and like walk away. You know, that'll be the part of the petting zoo. But yes, like I say, if you're gonna be in Chicago at the Fan Fest, shoot us a message, send us a message, and then hopefully we can meet you guys there. But have a great week, everybody, and the gang will be back tomorrow night. So hook up with them 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. I'm sure they'll talk a lot about Nunez as well as like the weekend and stuff like that. But until then, have an awesome day, everybody, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care.